The following podcast contains movie spoilers and mature content, including graphic descriptions of violence. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Opening Kill, the podcast that dives deep into the chilling world of horror films. Every other Thursday, we explore a different movie, from cult classics to modern masterpieces, uncovering behind-the-scenes secrets, analyzing themes, and sharing spine-tingling trivia. Join us as we chat with filmmakers, actors, and fellow horror enthusiasts to celebrate the art of fear in cinema. And now, the hosts of Opening Kill, Michael Doran and Brian O'Connor.
Hello, hello.
We made it another week. We're back.
Episode number 2 of the Opening Kill podcast. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. How you doing?
Good. How was your Halloween? Because we actually, our first episode debuted on Halloween.
Yeah, mine was really good. It was kind of just low key. Took the 2 kids out to the mall to trick or treat for a little bit.
Okay.
Only went out for about like an hour. Well,
Right.
That's all we really had to do.
Sure.
Because they're young enough. It's easy now.
Yeah, now.
Yeah, they don't have expectations, so that will change.
Exactly. Yeah, I didn't do too much. It was the usual grab some pizza and hit Halloween and... You know, and then that was it, the original movie. That's kind of been my tradition forever. I know it's boring, but that's what I do.
It's a good tradition, though.
Yeah, I think so. So it is Opening Kill, where we talk about all things horror. And before we get into our main film franchise that we're going to talk about, do want to acknowledge actor Tony Todd, who passed away on November 6th. You probably know him best as the title character in the Candyman film series.
Yep. He's also... he's not death, but he's sort of like the messenger of death in Final Destination.
Right.
He's like, I don't know exactly if he's supernatural or not. He kind of walks that line, but his voice was so incredible.
Really was. And he just did a lot of things. I mean, other movies include Frankenstein from 2015, Death House from 2017. I remember him from Star Trek The Next Generation, because I am a total Trekkie. He did a couple of episodes there. He was also in a very creepy episode of The X-Files. Just did a lot of stuff. And one of the cool things about him was... when the movie roles or TV roles weren't interesting, he wasn't being offered roles that really engaged him. He just said, you know what, I'm going to go back to theater. That's where I started. I'm going to go back to the stage. And that's what he would do until something would, attract him and he'd go back into film and TV. So
that's really cool. He is I actually randomly watched a movie that he popped up in the other day. It's pretty new. It's called Stream. And it's about this hotel that locks the guests in, and then there's 4 killers trying to kill him. But he shows up at the very end, and so like he had just died, and then I see him there. I was like, "Oh wow!" It made me bump it up from a 2.5 star to 3.
I will have to check that movie out.
Yeah, it's not good, but it's perfectly fine.
Great.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I will check that out. Again, very extensive career. I mean, we could sit here and just do a whole episode on Tony Todd and everything that he did, horror and non-horror. But very sad, passing away November 6th at the age of 69 from stomach cancer. So very sad news. Yeah. All right.
Rest in peace.
We're going to get into our film here. This is one of my favorites of all time. Now, I love vampire films and werewolf films.
Yeah.
All right, those are my genres. And this is probably my favorite vampire film. We're going to go back to 1985 and talk about Fright Night.
Ooh, this is my first time watching it.
I can't believe this.
I know.
Yeah.
It was one that was on my watch list, and then something would just come along and keep bumping it down.
Right.
But I'm glad I got to finally get around to it. Thoroughly enjoyed myself. It's very 80s in the best way. Like
Yes.
It's got that cheese, but it's so charming. It's very charming while also pulling off some really spooky scenes as well.
Right. Written and directed by Tom Holland, starring Chris Sarandon. We're going to talk about his character of Jerry Dandridge because I think that Chris Sarandon plays one of the absolute coolest vampires ever.
He's very suave.
Very suave.
Yeah.
Very suave. I don't think it gets much better than that. William Ragsdale, Amanda Bierce, who a lot of people know from Married with Children. She was on that show's entire run. It was like a 11 years or something like that on Fox. It was actually Fox's first comedy series, and really pushed the boundaries for the time. They billed themselves as the anti-Cosby Show. And Amanda Beers had one of the supporting roles in that, but she is in this film as well. Stephen Jeffries, and one of my favorite actors of all time, Roddy McDowall.
His role in this is very good.
Man.
It's so much fun.
It's so much fun. So the film is pretty simple. It's about a boy next door, and his neighbor moves in, and he suspects that he's a vampire, and then he tries to convince his friends and everything else that there's a vampire living next door to me. And Tom Holland, when he came up with this idea, he basically didn't know what to do with it. He said, here's this boy next door, and there's a vampire next to him. And I mean, how is the story going to sustain itself?
Right. Yeah.
And it wasn't until he actually created the character of Roddy McDowall's character of Peter Vincent, and he worked that into the story. And then it was like, oh, now I know what this is going to be.
Yeah. It's, while I was watching it, I couldn't help but notice similarities with between it and Disturbia, that Shia LaBeouf movie.
Right.
So very similar to that. So if you enjoyed that one, but you were just hoping that killer was a vampire, then you're going to love this.
Oh,
this is perfect for you.
Yeah. I mean, it was cast perfectly. The story is great. The effects for the time, there's some pretty bitchin' effects.
The special effects, because they're all practical too.
Right.
And I think they held up. That was one of my favorite parts.
Right.
Honestly.
Yeah, I think so too. And as we get into the film more and more, Charlie starts to see more and more happenings, and people end up dead. But first, of course, we need to talk about
the opening kill.
So the opening kill in this film is a little tricky to try and define, because the actress Heidi Sorensen, who was a Playboy bunny and lived at the Playboy Mansion in the early 80s and did, a lot of things there. She plays a hooker who shows up at Jerry Dandridge's house, and she's summoned, and so she shows up, and she is the first victim. It's an off-screen kill.
Yeah. That was the only bummer. You don't even see a body. Right. You hear a scream, and then you see the news that she's missing.
Right.
But I mean, I think what an opening kill needs to do is it needs to set up a movie.
Right.
And even though it's off screen, I feel like it kind of puts the story into motion. So, I mean, it does its job.
Yeah.
It's just not maybe as juicy as you would maybe want.
Something from Terrifier.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. No hacksaw. Not a single hacksaw in sight.
So the reason I said it's a little misleading, who actually is killed first. The next day, so Charlie sees the hooker, and they have a brief exchange, and then she goes into the house. He hears her scream, later that night, and then the next day he goes to school. He's sitting there at the lunch table with his girlfriend, Amanda Beers. And there's a TV in the cafeteria, and there's a news show that comes on. The news comes on, and they're talking about, this person who has gone missing and then murdered, and it's the girl. They show her face. And then his friend Evil Ed, who is played by Stephen Jeffries.
He's a character.
He is a character. He comes in, and he goes, "That's not the first one. There was another one." So it's not really sure who gets killed first here, but we picked Heidi Sorensen her character because we actually got to see at least see
she
her
appears
alive.
on screen.
Yeah, exactly. And then the fun begins from there. And he finally goes to Peter Vincent. And Peter Vincent, played by Roddy McDowall, is a local television host.
Right.
And he hosts the show Fright Night.
Yeah,
and
it's like something you'd see on PBS or something. Yeah.
Exactly what it would be. And he goes to him, and he shows up on the set just as Peter Vincent is being fired from the show. And Peter Vincent just thinks he approaches him in the parking lot. Yeah, he thinks he wants an autograph, and he tries to convince him that no, there's a vampire living next door to me. I need your help.
Yeah, and Peter's not very receptive. I think he asks to see if he's insane and needs to be medicated or something.
Yep, exactly. So in the end, Peter Vincent, actually, his friends Charlie's friends, Evil Ed and his girlfriend Amanda, go to Peter Vincent's apartment, and they actually bribe him,
Right.
To try and prove that Jerry Dandridge is a vampire. So they all meet up. And they go to, they call ahead and they set it up with Jerry Dandridge.
That's such a good scene where they're like on the phone being like, okay, would you like drink some holy water? And he's like, no, that's blasphemous or something. Like he says he's like a new Christian or something and he can't disrespect a crucifix. So he's giving them the slip on like, no, I'm not going to. I mean, you can come do things, but I'm not going to like show you my actual weakness. But that whole phone conversation is hilarious.
There's a lot of comedy in this.
Yeah.
It's, it's not your serious, like, you think of things like, Lost Boys. I mean, there was a little bit of comedy in there too, but this is, like you said, the cheesier 80s type comedy.
Right.
But yeah, that phone call was classic. And he finally goes, it's just tap water.
Yeah. He's like, look, I'll put it in my little vial. It's not blessed. Like you can drink it. And he's like, okay, yeah, I can do that. Come on over.
Exactly. So they do end up at the house. So Charlie and his girlfriend, Amy, and then Evil Ed, and Peter Vincent, and there's a scene where they go through all the tests, and of course they're all fake tests. Right. So Jerry Dandridge passes the tests. Got to mention his roommate Billy Cole, played by
roommate / kind of maybe a lover.
Maybe it's
there's
hard
like
to
a couple
say.
scenes where like they drape their arms around each other. I'm like,
yeah. You wonder about it.
Yeah.
And Billy Cole, played by the great Jonathan Stark, who's been in a ton of things as well. So they're all there. And, of course, they already know Charlie is causing trouble for them.
Well, yeah, Charlie's called the police on him. Like, the police have already been to Jerry's house.
Right.
Like, and I think has Jerry threatened him yet? I think he had.
I think he has at that point.
He has already threatened him.
Yeah, he has.
So,
yeah.
They're not friends.
No, they're not friends at all. So they basically go to the house and they go through all these fake tests. Jerry drinks the vial of water after he holds it up to the light and looks at it. And, Vincent Price not Vincent Price. He was named after Vincent Price. Right. That's why I keep doing that. Peter Vincent, which actually he's named after a couple of people. Peter Cushing and Vincent Price. Yeah. So that's, I'm going to get
classic
that mixed up all night. But so Peter Vincent just nods at him, goes, it's okay. So he drinks it and he's fine. And then at the end of the scene, Peter Vincent has got his little compact mirror out and he's looking at it and he realizes that Jerry Dandridge has no reflection in the mirror.
Mm-hmm. And this is where he kind of just panics.
Yeah.
Because the whole time, I don't even think he believes in vampires, period.
No, he doesn't.
Yeah. Even though he plays a vampire hunter on TV.
Right.
He just freaks out and he's just like, okay, let's go. Everything's fine. We got to get out of here right now.
And in his hurry to get out, he drops his mirror and it breaks.
Yeah.
And so he reaches down, picks up the glass, and of course Jerry Dandridge, is everything okay, Mr. Vincent?
Right. Can we also talk about like how Jerry is like a super powerful ancient vampire, but his name is Jerry?
Yeah.
That's like the least intimidating vampire name ever.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so they leave the house, and except there's a piece of glass that Peter Vincent doesn't see, and Jerry steps on it and he hears it, crunch under his foot. He moves his foot, realizes that Peter Vincent has seen him cast no reflection in the mirror. And that's where the fun really starts.
The jig's up.
Jig is up. At this point, I remember seeing this movie. This was not one of the first horror movies, but pretty early on in my horror watching career, as I think it was a teenager by now when I saw this thing, but just the story and the way it was cast, I think, is fantastic. Again, I can't say enough about Chris Sarandon's performance in this as Jerry Dandridge.
He's very, like I said, very suave, but he's also like a predator, and like just the way he moves, like he's very intimidating, but he can turn that off at like the drop of a hat, and he can just mold into whatever he needs to be for whatever situation.
He almost didn't do the movie.
Oh, really?
No.
Why?
He said that there is no way I can do a horror film. His agent gave him the script, and he said, no, I can't do a horror film. And then he actually perused the script and fell in love with it. And immediately, he said, hey, this is one of the best scripts I think I've ever read. It was great. And he was on board. And he was a little worried about maybe being typecast as a villain because of it, but he still did it anyway. And I'm so glad he did.
He's got his performance is one where it's like you can tell he could be a good guy as well as the evil villain. So he's got range in the role. Right. I think he wears both sides very well.
Yep, I do too. And Jonathan Stark almost didn't do it either because he wasn't a fan of horror. But he read the script, and again, he got hooked and signed up for it. William Ragsdale, he's in it. He did a lot of things after this film. And who else? Stephen Jeffries is an interesting actor. He played Evil Ed in this, and he actually auditioned for the movie Weird Science. And he made an impression on Jackie Birch, who suggested him for Fright Night, although he was not a horror movie fan. Jeffries also loved the script, so he called his agent and just said, hey, I want to do this.
That script writer needs a raise.
Yeah, no kidding. And it was Tom Holland, who wrote and directed the thing. And then they eventually cast Amanda Bierce. That was the most difficult role for them to cast. They just could not find the perfect one until she walked in and she nailed it. So pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, Evil Ed. We'll talk about more about him later, but when we're breaking down our favorite scenes, he's in one of mine. So
yeah,
we'll discuss him a little bit more.
Yeah. So, it had a budget of about $9 million and it made 25. So
it was, I mean, it's a moderate success.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're talking about the makeup and the special effects. So the guy who did the visual effects in this film, he had just completed work on Ghostbusters before he came on to this. Okay. And worked to his advantage because he said that they made all of their mistakes in Ghostbusters and learned from them and brought that to Fright Night. And and this was done on the cheap. I mean, $9 million, I mean, even back then is not a whole lot of money for a film, and especially today.
No, yeah.
So they were able to do a lot with very little.
Yeah, that's the thing about practical effects. If you can nail it, it's way cheaper in the end.
Yep.
But I mean, nailing it is the tough part.
Yep, exactly. And really, I mean, the movie just kind of clicks along. There's not really any place where it just kind of lags. I don't think. I think the pacing was good.
No, it's got really
good
through. Pacing. I think like after that scene at Jerry's house, it moves into them leaving, and he actually tracks down Evil Ed, and that is where Jerry actually ends up turning Evil Ed into a vampire. Right. And then he follows Charlie and Amy to like a dance club or something. Yep. And this scene is pretty cool, I think.
Yeah.
Well,
let's get into our favorite scenes, because this is kind of one of mine too.
Okay, this is an honorable mention for me. So I loved it. Just didn't quite make the cut, but it's a fun one.
They get into the dance club, and by this point, Jerry Dandridge has stolen Amy away from Charlie Brewster. Now, the thing with Amy, she looks just like somebody who he had a relationship with, I don't know how many years ago, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, however old he is, because there's a painting in his house of this woman who looks just like Amy. And that's why he is drawn to her. And he ends up basically hypnotizing her.
Interesting. I didn't notice that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And so they end up, long story short, they end up in this nightclub and Charlie's trying to get her back. Well, they're dancing. Jerry Dandridge and her are dancing. And there's this wall of mirrors. And they did this brilliantly because you see her spinning around, but you don't see him. And then it cuts back to him. And then
it's
it looks
cut
really good.
well.
Yeah, it was very well. And I think that is probably one of my favorite scenes. What about you?
That just missed out on my top three. My one of my favorite scenes is actually way back in the beginning. It's where Charlie and Amy, they're kind of getting hot and heavy, doing a lot of making out. He's like trying to make it go to the next level, and she's kept like, no, stop. And he's just like, oh, come on.
She wasn't that nice about it.
No, she wasn't. She's like, stop it.
Yeah.
And he's just like, nah. And then like he must.
Did he make that noise?
I think he did go.
I don't think he made that noise.
He hears like a noise outside, and he like instantly goes and looks out the window. I think he even grabs binoculars, and he notices Billy and Jerry, or maybe it's just Billy carrying a casket down.
Yeah.
And he's just like, what the hell is going on here? And then Amy actually decides that, okay, you know what? We could do this. And she like in her bra and is like, all right, come and get it. And he's just like, no, that's old news. I'm still watching this scene unfold outside. But I just thought that was, I don't know, it cracked me up.
Yeah.
And I just love the whole watching your neighbors and seeing something kind of weird and just being fascinated by it. It was just a fun scene.
I think that's a great scene for me. Like we just talked about the nightclub scene, that's on my list. And then the alley scene where Jerry Dandridge chases down, he's not really chasing him.
He's walking.
He's just walking, but he catches up to Evil Ed and he turns him into a vampire. That whole scene, the way it was just lit and the way they blocked it, everything about it was really atmospheric, and creepy. So that was one of my favorite scenes.
Really cool use of smoke in it too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, they set
I mean,
the
you
scene.
have to have smoke.
Well, yeah,
you have to have smoke.
I think like
right?
that's one of vampires' powers is they can like wisp into smoke. I'm pretty sure.
I think so.
You can fact check that.
Yep. Billy's death scene.
That is my second one.
Is that on your list?
That's my number 2.
I'll let you talk about that.
All right. So Billy's the maybe lover, roommate of Jerry, and they're fighting him, and they end up shooting him, and he doesn't die. He keeps like coming back. And I don't know, does it ever say exactly what he is?
Not really.
Okay. So he's just some sort of undead, immortal thing. And then his death, though, involves him dissolving essentially.
Right.
And it's like green and goopy, and like you see everything drip away till the skull's only there. And it's just like a really cool special effects scene. Like it was a lot of fun.
Right. It's it was very well done.
I think that's probably the most violent part as well.
Okay. Yeah.
I would think.
I think it probably is. Yeah.
I mean, nothing in this movie is like super crazy. It's a good like beginner horror movie. If you're like, I kind of want to dip my toes into the horror scene, Fright Night's not a bad one to try.
Right. Exactly. Evil Ed's wolf transformation.
And that is my number 1.
Is that your number 1?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, you can talk about this one. It's cool.
Well, I mean, basically, yeah, he he does. He turns into this wolf. This is interesting because the makeup that Stephen Jeffries had to get into took 18 hours. 18 hours.
Nice.
While he had the wolf head on, the crew did the rest of whatever it is they were doing. And actually, there was a story where they were pouring some liquid onto it, and it was supposed to be something else. And it was what they were actually using was an adhesive.
Oh my God.
And it was actually gluing his mouth shut while they were putting it on. And it wasn't supposed to be this adhesive. It was supposed to be something to go into his mouth to help create the illusion of saliva or slobber and stuff like that. Yeah. But instead they were pouring glue onto this kid.
Maybe one of the set hands like got annoyed of his voice and they're like, we need to shut this kid up.
Yeah.
I'll just mix these bottles up real quick. Oopsie.
So anyway, so Ed turns into this werewolf and he gets staked basically and gets thrown off of a second floor balcony in
Nails
Charlie's
a
house.
chandelier even. That
Absolutely.
The wolf like nailing the chandelier kind of cracked me up because he's like, at this point he's just a wolf.
Yeah.
Like it's not like a werewolf hybrid.
Yeah, I'm saying a werewolf,
but he does.
He does.
Once he gets stabbed, then he's kind of shifts into more of a werewolf, which I mean, in that design was kick-ass.
Oh,
it was so dope.
It really was. But yeah, you're right. Hitting that chandelier was a nice touch
awesome.
on the way down. Who was your favorite character in this?
Mine was Peter Vincent.
Yeah.
He's so he's very much like the Professor Lockhart character from Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, where he's just a big phony.
I never thought about that, but you're right.
And
I see
Lockhart's
that.
one of my favorite characters in the Harry Potter. So seeing this character, I was just like, I like this guy. He's the expert,
Right.
but he doesn't know anything about what he's talking about.
Exactly. Yeah. And doesn't believe in it. Anyway, I don't think he really does.
No, he's just fun, but he turns into kind of like, he does has cool scenes towards the end where it's like, okay, dude's actually holding his own.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for me, I'm going to go back to Jerry Dandridge.
Nah, I mean, yeah.
You know, I just think out of all the vampire movies I've seen and all the actors who play vampires, I mean, there's been some very cool vampires.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, but you know, I think Chris Sarandon just knocked it out of the park with this one. So
he did.
Yeah.
There was this one scene. I don't know where it falls in the timeline. I can't exactly remember, but Charlie is looking out his window and sees Jerry with a girl. And it's kind of a weird scene. Like the girl's naked and Jerry kind of like looks over and notices Charlie, and he just like shows off his little claws and then slowly pulls the drapes down.
the blind,
It's just like so slow though. And you're just like,
and he's watching
lots
him
of
the whole
eye
time.
contact.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. His eyes are on him the whole time.
Yes, that was kind of fun. But he also has a couple different looks to his vampire. He's got the human one, then he's got this kind of like a hybrid where he looks a little bit more monstrous, but then he has the super cool bat form,
Right.
where he's just like a giant bat, but it looks really awesome. And he actually nails Peter Vincent, and Peter's trying to like push this bat off of him. It's trying to snap on his face.
That was a pretty tense
That
scene.
was fun. The whole like last 10 minutes are pretty great.
Yeah.
It's pretty just nonstop.
Right.
And
Right.
yeah, I mean, towards the climax, I mean, once it gets going, it doesn't let up.
How does this rank for you with other vampire movies that you've seen? You have a favorite vampire movie?
I do have a favorite. That's Daybreakers with Ethan Hawke.
Right.
I love that one. I just thought it was a really cool concept. And any anti-capitalistic movie out there, I'm probably going to eat up.
That is a good movie. I think for me, I mean, Fright Night is right on top for me. I think it's followed close by. I mean, The Lost Boys is another classic.
Right.
An all-star cast, I think, is just phenomenal. I love Diane Wiest. I think she's just a great actress. And, of course, you've got Kiefer.
Yeah,
you've got,
pretty
everybody
iconic
else.
role.
Absolutely. The Coreys.
Oh, yeah, Corey Feldman's in that movie.
Yeah, he's in that
Wow.
too. Yeah.
That's
yeah.
one I probably should rewatch. It's been a minute. But, I mean, honestly, I'd say this one ranks towards the top. Like, it's fun. It's
Right.
just a fun movie.
Want to talk about now moving on to the others, because there are 3 other movies.
Oh, yeah.
And I actually binged all of these over the past week. I'd seen them before, but I needed to kind of refresh my takes on them. Fright
Right.
Night 2, there was a sequel in 1988. And normally when you have a movie and it's successful, it makes a lot of money and it develops a cult following, and you get greenlit for a sequel, normally they throw more money at you
Right.
for the sequel. That did not happen with Fright Night 2. Fright Night Part 2, it was actually $1.5 million less than the budget of the original, and it tanked at the box office. Only made about $3 million. William Ragsdale came back as Charlie Brewster. Roddy McDowall came back as Peter Vincent. And I'm not going to say it was the best movie, but it was not terrible. It wasn't bad.
What's the story here? Like, so at the end of the first one,
Right.
they end up, of course, killing Jerry.
Yep.
And living, well, you would assume happily ever
Happily
after.
ever
but-
after. Well, he breaks up with Amy.
What?
Yeah, they break up. And
That's some audacity.
I know.
You go through like the craziest thing together and you can't even stick around.
No, well, I think she
She
broke
gets
up.
turned into a vampire.
She broke up with him.
Okay, well, that makes more
I think
sense.
is how that
Okay.
worked. But he is now, this is 3 years later, and he has been going to therapy, and he's now convinced that this was all an illusion and that Jerry Dandridge was just a normal human serial killer living next to him. And
That's an interesting route. I
there
kind of
was-
like that.
There was no vampire, to it. It was just he was a killer, and he was, basically brainwashed and and tricked into thinking that he was a vampire. And then they start to see things, and this one actually centers around Jerry Dandridge's sister, who comes looking for Peter Vincent and Charlie Brewster to exact revenge for killing her brother.
yeah.
So it's got an interesting cast. John Grice is in this as a vampire. And many people, he's been in a lot of things. Many people will remember him as Uncle Rico from Napoleon Dynamite.
What?
Yeah, he is in this, and he is definitely the comic relief in this thing.
Okay.
He's one of her, I want to say assistants. He's part of the vampire family, but there's a bowling alley scene.
Does he throw a bowling ball over the mountains?
Well, he basically he's pranking the other vampires. They go bowling and they go in there after hours when they're closing, and they kill the two employees and decapitate them.
Nice.
And so John Christ's character takes one and, basically tosses it down the lane so it comes back up into the ball return, and the other vampire goes to get it and gets pissed and like, what is this?
Nice.
And he's laughing. And so he's definitely the comic relief in that.
So is this one more violent?
There's a little more violence, I think, in this one. It doesn't quite have the pop and the magic that the original has.
Right.
I mean, they really did something special with the original one. But again, I'm not going to give this a terrible rating.
Right.
It's just didn't really work as well as the first one. There was a remake in 2011, and that was the Colin Farrell.
Yeah, I have seen this one.
Right.
This was the first one I watched.
Right.
And I really liked that one.
Yep.
I thought it was really good. Colin Farrell, he kind of nailed that role.
He
Very
did.
different take.
Very much so.
But very effective.
What I love about this movie, the remake, and it also starred the late Anton Yelchin. Oh, that was so
such
sad.
a random, sad story.
Oh
too.
my gosh. So if you're not familiar, he was an actor, a young actor who came home one night and got out of his Jeep to go check his mailbox. And I guess he didn't put it in park, and it rolled backwards and it pinned him against his brick pillar. And he basically suffocated him and killed him.
Insane.
Just
a freak accident.
Yeah. He was Charlie Brewster in this film. And I thought he did fantastic. And I thought the entire cast did well. Toni Collette is in this too, as his mother.
That's his mom. Yeah, I love
and
Toni Collette.
I love her. She's great. But I think
McLovin's also in this.
Yes. And
he's Evil Ed, I think. Yeah,
that's right. And
is David Tennant Peter Vincent?
David Tennant is Peter Vincent.
Right.
And then Imogene Poots is in this, as well as the girlfriend Amy. Chris Sarandon, who played Jerry Dandridge in the original, makes a cameo in this. He's a motorist who gets in a car accident, and then Jerry Dandridge pulls him out of his car and kills him.
Little Jerry on Jerry crime.
Jerry on Jerry. And he's just playing this random motorist, which I thought was fantastic.
That's cool.
And in the credits, they credit Chris Sarandon as JD.
Nice. That's
Jerry
fun.
Dandridge,
Okay.
JD.
There we go.
So this got a lot more money too.
It looks it.
I mean,
it looks very polished.
Very polished. $30 million, made 41. So it wasn't like huge. It made money, but it wasn't as big, as you would like to have there. And then there was a sequel to that one called Fright Night 2, New Blood.
Yeah.
And this one, direct to video.
Yeah, I didn't know it existed until we were looking into these movies.
Well, and I rated this one. I think I gave it 4 stars out of 5.
I mean, that's
which is
good.
pretty good. But here's the thing: I don't remember the movie. Okay, so it didn't make that much of an impact. I mean, I enjoyed it.
That doesn't sound like a 4-star movie, Brian.
No, it doesn't. But that's what I did. I gave it a pretty good rating. But yeah, I would have to go through it again. I remember that it took place in Romania.
Oh,
and I don't remember too much about it.
Do they follow the same thing where it's Jerry's sister?
No,
or is it just a completely different thing?
Oh, and and it's none of the original actors from the 2011 remake are in this sequel.
Okay, so it's just completely disconnected.
I don't even know who's involved with it.
It probably was like a movie that they had, and then they're like, you know what? Let's just throw some vampires in there, call it Fright Night 2, and boom, now you can make it.
Right. That could be. That very well could be. And that's a lot of times that's what happens. But when you go straight to video, then...
Yeah.
So those are the 4 Fright Night movies. You can watch them. They're all streaming. The interesting thing with Fright Night 2 from 1988, the sequel to the original, it's not streaming on the traditional streaming services. They did release it on DVD, but it didn't last long. They stopped, making copies. So if you find Fright Night 2, a physical copy, whether that's a VHS or a DVD, It's a collector's item. They're just, they're hard to find.
Are they valuable?
I don't know. I don't think they're valuable. They're rare. I haven't seen one. You know what though? I remember renting this from a video store because I saw it before streaming existed. So I had a physical copy in my hand at one point.
Should have kept it.
Should have just kept it and just paid the late fees, right?
Right.
but yeah, they're hard to find. And it is streaming though. If you do want to watch Fright Night 2, it's on YouTube.
Okay.
It's just somebody posted it there. It's not an official release.
It's watchable.
It's watchable. It's good quality.
Okay.
It's not like the greatest where you would, what you would see on a Netflix or a Hulu or something, but at least you can see it.
Right.
The other two are out there streaming, so you can find those as well. But the original Fright Night, I own that one, obviously, and that's streaming. I think it's on Hulu or one of them. Oh, no, I think the 2011 remake's on Hulu. Okay. The other one is out there streaming as well, though. But that is Fright Night.
Yeah, that was a fun one. I'm glad I finally got around to watching it. I think, what did you end up rating? Let's go through what we rated, because I've only seen the two. So I gave the original Fright Night 4 stars, and then I gave the remake 3.
Hey, you're going to put me on the spot here. Let me pull up my rating system. Now, we're on Letterboxd as well.
We're a great follow.
We really are. Let me see what I did rate these things. Now, you go on a star basis. I go on a letter grade. So let's see here. What did I do for Fright Night? The original Fright Night from 1985 gets an A. I actually gave the remake 2011. It got an A.
Ooh.
And then Fright Night 2 New Blood 2013, it actually got a B. And Fright Night Part 2, the sequel to the 1985 one, also got a B. So they were A's and B's. So they were pretty good. Yeah, those are my ratings.
All right. So, yeah, it definitely shows that it's one of your favorite franchises.
Yeah, it is. I don't know if they'll ever do anything else with it again. That they should be done now.
I mean, give it 10 years.
Yeah, right. Right. I'd heard that they were thinking about doing something else, but I think when the 2013 one went right to video, I think that's probably a sign that maybe we should stop now.
Yeah, it was the stake through the chest that this franchise needed.
I think so. But any other thoughts on this?
Nah, overall, I'd say if you haven't seen it and you love just like, even if you just like coming of age tales, because it is kind of that.
Right.
Just watch it. Like, you're going to have fun. I don't think there's a single person who's going to be like, well, that was a waste of my time.
Right. No, I don't think so either. It's developed such a cult following. Even the second one has a cult following now, too. So it's just one of those things.
Well, now that I know that Uncle Rico's in it, I'm going to have to check that one
out.
You're
going to have to check it out. I mean, he definitely is the comic relief in that. So good times.
Yeah.
Good times. So our next podcast episode lands on Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So we're going to do the obvious here.
And Eli Roth's 2023 Thanksgiving.
Yes. So we can't wait for that.
Guess we'll talk to you in a couple weeks.
Sounds good. All right. See ya.
The Opening Kill podcast is hosted by Michael Duran and Brian O'Connor and is produced by Mystic Cloud Productions. Thanks for listening. And don't forget to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere you listen to your favorite podcasts. Follow us on Instagram, too. We'll see you in 2 weeks.